Alright, my babies. So today's video is, how does the tree see life? That is a conversation I had with a cousin of mine. That guy took it upon himself to try to understand nature. And let's just say he tried to understand it in a way. I don't want to sound like I'm judging him, because I really am not. Like, people can do whatever the fuck they want. But the idea is, let me read this, basically, and then I'll get back to the conversation. How does the tree see life? Roots keep extending to find nutrients for sustainability. Branches grow to sustain roots for growth. So what I'm pointing at here is the mutual relationship between like the upper part of the tree and the lower part of the tree. Carbon is from the atmosphere. The survival system and so automatically gives growth. All right. So like there are 2 points here, three actually. One is like how does the tree see life, right? And it kind of like points at like uh, when you plant the seed, the first thing that kind of pop up are the roots, right? Like simultaneously, it's pushing up as well. And as the roots start exploring and getting some water, getting some nutrients, and whatever it is they get from the tree, from the ground, uh, the job of the leaves is basically to sustain the growth of the roots. That could practically be it, right? Because ultimately, uh, if you keep clipping like the leaves of the tree, eventually it will die. Because the job is for them to collect carbon from the atmosphere. A tree does not produce oxygen, it collects carbon. It's literally, it takes the CO2, because oxygen and carbon are kind of like, oxygen is very possessive, let's just say. And Dr. Feynman explains it beautifully. But the idea is like the tree doesn't grow from the ground, it grows from the atmosphere. Because the leaf's purpose is to kind of absorb that carbon. And the more carbon rich the atmosphere is, the faster the fucking tree grows. That's why trees on like higher like altitudes take longer to grow. Just literally kind of like that simple. It's because there's less oxygen in the air and carbon kind of like is low density, so it falls down. I'm sure you guys have kind of like seen videos of people basically walking in caves and like the bottom of the cave is kind of like filled with carbon and they put the fire down, it kind of dies because fire needs oxygen to burn. So that's the one thing basically out of the three. The second one is the survival system automatically gives growth. And weirdly so, that's the system that's embedded in it. And then carbon is from the atmosphere because trees don't grow from the ground, they actually grow from the air surrounding them. So that high rich basically areas tend to catch fire faster. High oxygen rich areas tend to catch fire faster. And high carbon rich areas basically will have more vegetation. Fun things, whatever the conversation is. But that starts with, how does the tree see life? I'm not sure if this is when I was having the conversation with him or not. I doubt it because like I remember June of last year is the last time I saw my family. I saw any of my family. And I haven't basically hung out with this guy for over a year plus. So the tree sees life. And the reason I asked this question is ultimately because it took 30 minutes trying to explain how he was trying to understand basically how trees see life and feel life and look at life. It's not that I wasn't interested, I was more interested in why he would do that because I would appreciate nature I would try to relate to nature. But that's a very arrogant thing to say that you are trying to understand nature. It's the same as somebody saying, I'm trying to understand God, or trying to understand the universe, or trying to understand the cosmic energy of the world, and basically all, and the soul, and all that stuff. It really feels like these are things that you kind of like, because you're looking at them from yourself, right? So you can be as creative as you can. The truth is, you can understand how they function, how they work, how they live, how they kind of exist. Understanding them, uh, I think that's an arrogance approach. But nevertheless, it did click with me that he would be onto something like that. And don't get me wrong, I think all of us at one point kind of like have that existential beyond me, what's going on? What exactly am I like reflecting on? Who, why do I matter or something like this? So effectively, what I ended up writing down is basically like, the roots keep extending, and basically, as the roots extend, they have to be backed up by the leaves, and as the leaves grow, they have to be backed up by the roots. It's not. I don't know if I should consider it a race kind of thing, because like if the roots are stunted, then eventually like the tree awkwardly grows. And the roots keep growing until there's no more soil left. And then what happens is it basically just kind of kills itself. So that kind of dynamic, I'm normally when I say stuff like this, when I look at stuff like this, I'm instantly reflecting on what is it that's actually like pulling on both sides from me, right? Because there's the expression and then there's the creation. So in your mind, you're creating stuff, and in the world, your behavior is expressing it. And they feel the same, right? As the root system is to the leaf, to the branches, to the leaves, and all that stuff. They feel the same because it feels like at one point, the minute you create something in your head, it kind of has to express itself. But the minute you express it from your mind, from your actual behavior, what happens is you kind of have to like your mind instantly is creating something different because the minute is expressed, it kind of leaves from. Can I look at it from that perspective, that relationship? I have always looked at whatever your mind does as the minute it leaves, there's a vacancy, an emptiness, and something else has to grow, has to has to kind of like come about. But looking at it from a tree's perspective, like how the roots basically grow, if you don't express what's on your mind, it kind of like stays there, right? And it kind of starts roaming around, exactly how a tree would kind of like suffocate itself when its roots are kind of like going around the pots. That is definitely a different perspective. Because for me, I always use the fill the bucket with water approach, and then when you empty it, you can fill it with something else. And I've always looked at expression this way. But being able to look at expression from a perspective of the tree, and ultimately, whether you like to admit it or not, the relationship between your creativity and your expression is symbiotic. If something is created, it has to be expressed. If something is expressed, something has to be created. No, that expression triggers the new thing that gets created. Like it's not like I can express anger and my head will create peace, but I can express frustration. Mm, The difference between anger and frustration, I guess, because when I'm frustrated and I express it, is different than when I'm angry and I'm just kind of like rampaging. Rampaging is an expression of anger, or is it the result of anger, right? There's a mythical creature called the Berserker, and what it does is it gets stronger the angrier it gets. So maybe the unconscious, subconsciously, these things are a bit into the. So whatever happens, how did it start? Let's go back to when you were a fucking baby and consciousness was exploring this world. It started with observation. When they say plant a seed in you, it's literally it. Because you see something, you kind of get excited for it. And that excitement leads to some form of creativity. And that's it. Every single thing that actually is expressed is based on something that you have observed in the world. And the thing that's expressed is based on your creativity, which leads us to the fact that human beings are the creators. Because effectively, like, when you look at a chair 2,000, 3,000 years ago, in caveman times, there were no chairs. They were just like stones on the ground until one guy decided to make it a chair. They observed the stone, they observed somebody sitting on it. And what they did was they basically like created something in their head and then expressed it in the form of a chair. And people basically just evolved that. We definitely are the creators. I'm loving, my mind is kind of like in that state where it's just like super peaceful right now because it's just a completely new perspective. It's just, it will change how I perceive everything, right? Super fucking exciting. All right, my babies. I love you, and it's a video.